Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In today's video we're going to be reviewing Final Fantasy X for the PC. The game was originally released in 2001 for the PlayStation 2, and then later released for the PC in 2016 as the HD Remaster. The PC version is the international release, which has the extra added monsters here and there, and a few bosses and a couple of extras in various places. But after all this time, is the game actually still good or not? Well, let's find out, shall we? The game's story is about a character called Tidus, who wakes up in a world known as Spira, after he witnesses his hometown be destroyed by a creature known as Sin. Once he wakes up in Spira, he eventually finds his way to a small island, where he meets Yuna, Wakka, and Lulu. Tidus then travels with Yuna and learns all about her being a summoner, and how she's been chosen to be the one to stop Sin, and how she has to go on a pilgrimage to various temples to gain help of various summoned creatures. Along the way, there are various twists and turns with your usual bad guy character and an end of the world feel. However, what this game is different and what makes it so special, especially for its time when it first came out, is its emotional aspect of the game. Tidus basically falls for Yuna, but Yuna knows that to complete her mission, she must basically sacrifice herself, and someone close to her, in order for Sin to be defeated. And even then, it's usually only around about 10 years, and then Sin generally returns, and the cycle starts off all over again. The game also dealt with the whole racism aspect years before any other game did, with how Yevon treats its followers, and how they also treat the Al-Bhed. This in itself was risky at the time, because it was essentially dealing with how religion and how religious followers treat people who are different, who haven't really done anything wrong, and their only real crime is not really knowing anything about them and being different in general. The story gets more complicated along the way with its various side plots and other twists and turns, and it really is a great story all around, but it can get rather complicated at times with Tidus and other aspects of the game. It is a great game, and it's a great story, but it is a tad overcomplicated at times. You get 7 characters to play as in your group, each ranging with their own abilities and specialities. Lulu is your mage who deals in black magic, Yuna is the team's summoner, Riku is the team's thief, and so forth with all your characters. However, you can change things a bit if you're able to get enough spheres, and can change things on the sphere grid. So you could change it so that Lulu can use white magic, or that Wakka becomes a thief. However, this will take a lot of spheres in order to change things about like this. Each of the characters is voiced, which was a first for the time in a Final Fantasy game, and was generally well received. I know it might not sound that impressive to gamers of today, but at that time of this game's official release, this was quite an achievement, especially for gaming at that time, as this hadn't really been done before, especially with a Final Fantasy game. A game as big as Final Fantasy being voiced hadn't been done before, so the fact that this game was able to do that really was quite an accomplishment. The characters themselves are all unique and are very well created. Kamari, for example, hardly says much during the whole game, but when he does talk, his words have meaning and they have real feeling behind them. He really actually has a character, even though he hardly says much. The game's story is also very clever in how it portrays the characters, such as Jecht. Generally, you see things through Tidus' eyes, and how he thinks his dad didn't care about him, or how he felt his dad was quite a selfish person. Yet when you see things from Jecht's point of view, he actually cared quite deeply about his son. It's a great cast of characters, each with their own issues and problems, that you learn about as the game progresses. And as you advance in the story, you learn more about each one, and how they feel about the state of the world that they live in. It's a very deep game, with very deep characters, that have a lot of meaning to them. The gameplay for the game is your usual RPG style gameplay, with the combat system being the same as with past Final Fantasy games. You can attack, use a special ability, use a special skill, or an item. Once you do any of these, you then have to wait for a short period of time, until you can choose what action you're going to take next. You travel around the area, and combat is random, which is a little disappointing, because the game is extremely grindy, and you find that just walking from point A to point B in one area usually ends up with you fighting around 7 or 8 times. If you're very unlucky, even more so. It really is very grindy, and I think it would have been better if Square had gone with the original plan of having the monsters on screen, so you could actually physically see them. It gets even more annoying because at one point in the game, it does actually do this. You can see the monsters in the location, you can avoid them and just go right past them. So they could have this for the whole game, but instead it's just at one single point in the game and nowhere else. And it just feels quite stupid and quite a letdown really. Because personally, I really don't like travelling in an area, not seeing the enemy, and then just having a random encounter all the time. If you have played a Final Fantasy game before, then gameplay wise you know what to expect here, so it's no real big surprise. It's the same usual formula from past Final Fantasy games, now in this one. At the time of release, this game's graphics were outstanding, and something which really was trying hard to push the PlayStation 2 to its limits. Each character is beautifully well created, and each location is also beautifully well created. However, the HD edition seems to suffer in a few places here and there, mostly with the character faces. I have mentioned this before with Final Fantasy X Part 2's review, but the character faces were changed for HD release over the original character faces, and they just don't look as good. It's almost like they have less nodes in the faces, so they give off this weird facial expression, and they just don't look as good as what the original models were meant to be. Some characters kind of look a little weird, like Waka. Sometimes when he gives an odd smile, when you compare it to how the originals looked, it almost looks as if he's had a stroke and just not told anyone. It just comes across as rather weird. That's really the only nitpicking that I have with this game's graphics, as generally the HD edition has improved on everything else, such as the textures for the floors and the layerings on each character of the monsters and everything else. Graphics wise, everything's been improved upon for the HD edition, so really this is the best edition out there which you can actually get to play. If you want the best version of Final Fantasy X, this is it. The world of Final Fantasy X was incredible, especially for its time when it first came out. However, today you realise something very quickly, and that's that the game is extremely linear. Now, at the time of the official release of this game when it first came out, everyone pretty much knew it was a linear game, as you travel with Yuna to location, going to each town's temple to gain the help of the summoned creature. Backtracking really wasn't an option up until the very end of the game, when you get the airship, and even then, you only really have about 3 or 4 things to do, and that's basically it. Each area is beautifully well created, and different from the last. No two places feel the same, and each area that you travel to looks amazingly well put together, ranging from the Thunder Plains, to the Mushroom Rock, to the ruined city of Zanarkand. It's all very well created. A lot of effort clearly went into creating each area, and it's well put together, with 3D character designs being placed on top of 2D/3D created areas. It really is a well created world, but I really do wish that Square had gone with its original plans, and had created each area in full 3D, with you being able to control the camera 360 degrees. Having seen the original beta footage of what 10 was meant to be and look like, I really do feel like we got a downgrade with this. It is a great game, don't get me wrong, I just think that it could have been a lot better. If you're sat there wondering, should I buy Final Fantasy X? There is a problem right from the start. It comes force packaged with Final Fantasy X Part 2. Final Fantasy X Part 2 is total crap, and is seen as one of the worst Final Fantasy games around. It basically takes everything that had any meaning in 10 and ruins it. So if you are wanting to play FFX10, then just realise you get 10 Part 2 forced in as a bundle. This means that you're going to have to download that game at the same time, even if you don't plan on ever playing it. Realistically, I would suggest you only play 10 and never touch 10 Part 2, because it's nothing short of a disappointment. It's basically like watching Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, and then watching The Last Jedi. It's just that bad. I would recommend FFX10 on its own, because it's an amazing story with a lot of emotion to its characters, and the game does an amazing job of making you feel how on edge the world of Spira actually is. You never know when sin is going to strike and just destroy an entire town or city. It's an amazing game, and it really was incredible for its time. However, I've always felt screwed over with this title, and it's mainly down to Enix. See, if you go onto YouTube and search for Final Fantasy X prototype, you can see early footage of when the company was still Squaresoft, and they showed how the game was going to be. They wanted to implement a physics engine into the game, add completely 3D created locations which you could move around in and control the camera in completely 360. They wanted to add an online feature where they would add new side quests for you to do and a whole bunch of other new things. However, at this point Squaresoft were in talks with Enix, and the merger had basically just started. And in order to keep Enix happy, Squaresoft chose not to go through with a lot of their ideas, as they would have been very expensive and very risky, and they couldn't risk losing Enix as they needed the merger to happen. It's still an amazing game, and back in the days when I had a PlayStation 2, it was one of my favourite games, which I really enjoyed, and I am very glad I got the chance to play it again on my PC with higher textures and resolution. But at the same time, I can't help but think what this game might have been like if Squaresoft had just went, screw it, it's our last real Final Fantasy game, let's pull all the stops out. Because let's all be honest here, everything after Final Fantasy X has been absolute crap, especially the Lightning series. Would I recommend the HD edition? Definitely. It's a great gaming experience, and I would recommend it to any RPG fan. This really is a great Final Fantasy game. Don't waste your money on the awful Lightning series, and instead, just get this game instead. It's a brilliant game. Just avoid playing 10 Part 2 though. Well, that's it for this review guys. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and please subscribe.